Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Mike, and today I just wanted to put together a little video to talk about a new Hoyoverse release that came out earlier this year, Zenless Zone Zero. I've been meaning to make this video for quite some time now. It's just been kind of getting away from me because I've been focused on Genshin as well as other things. So before another game of interest that I have comes out tomorrow, I wanted to go ahead and put this video together to just share my thoughts about the game and really just describe about how the game genuinely surprised me as to how fun and interesting it was. So this video is definitely not that scripted. I'm just here to talk a little bit about, what I've been thinking, how I'm feeling, and just to kind of encourage, I guess, a bit of friendly discussion about the game, because while I do genuinely enjoy it, I am not the most super committed, but I am playing it on the side and I am having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, if you guys do enjoy this little video and also have some of your own thoughts that you'd like to share about the game, feel free to let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to drop a like, and let's get into it. So, firstly, if anybody is only in the camp of Genshin or just doesn't know much about ZZZ as a game, it is another Hoyoverse game, and it kind of bridges the line between what Genshin has done with old school fantasy and what Honkai Star Rail has done with future fantasy. It takes pretty much the direct middle and lands in urban fantasy, so kind of modern times and everything. And it's honestly, at least as far as I kind of get from the vibes of the game, it's more along kind of the slice of life-ish kind of things. You're just kind of going about story-wise anyway and dealing with kind of things day to day, as kind of the greater arcing story continues to build up in the background. I'm honestly at the moment not too sure really what the massive stakes are, because the team behind this game is still obviously building up the world and getting us introduced to a ton of characters, factions, and motivations for the protagonists and antagonists forces within the story. But just overall, I think it's a really good starting point, and I'm really, really happy where that's going. As far as the actual gameplay and the combat, this game genuinely surprised me with how fun it is. It takes a lot of inspiration from the Genshin side of things, mainly with a little bit of elemental combat in there, and just the open battlefield action combat style, rather than sort of the turn-based RPG style that Star Rail has. But this combat is super duper fun. I really like it, and everything that's involved with it, from the chain attacks to the countering to the elemental bursts to just comboing with different characters, getting different team builds set up, super duper fun. And obviously with these types of games, I think a big part of the selling point for it is just the fact that all of the characters are super just iconic in their own ways. They're super recognizable, and they all have their own style and their own way of fighting. Super duper cool. I absolutely love it. Before I kind of get further into the video, if anyone doesn't really know a little bit more about me, I do have a bit of a history with Hoyoverse, not in the grander sense, but just the fact that I have been playing Genshin for all but its first year. I joined in pretty much as Inazuma was starting. I have tried Star Rail. I progressed through a little bit. Not that big of a fan of it. But after I ended up trying out ZZZ, which I was honestly firstly skeptical about, I came to just genuinely love it as a side game that I can play whenever I have, some free time. So if I'm not focused on other things like Genshin, but it's just super fun. And I think just above all, really the combat is what keeps me coming back, because I just love playing this game. It's really fun. So yeah, about ZZZ as a game itself, obviously it is a gacha game, so you're going to be pulling for characters that have their own kind of limited runs. And as far as all of the gear and everything that you need to level them up as well, it does kind of go on a gacha system, and getting not random amounts, but you're spending other resources to get access to the leveling resources in particular. And as far as the story side of things go, it's just a cut above the rest in terms of the cutscene animations. I can't really speak on the style for the Honkai series, but even Genshin, I feel kind of falls a little bit when it comes to kind of the pre-rendered animations on some scenes. They're pretty impressive for the most part. Obviously with the latest story cutscenes from the Natlan Archon quest, those were just breathtaking, but the ZZZ animation is just so stylized, so exaggerated, And the animators for this game really kind of do know what they're doing when it comes to animating all these characters, getting some good squash and stretch in there, and just really selling a lot of the movements that everybody is involved with, whether it comes to combat, evasion, or just the general kind of clutteredness of any battle scenes that are being shown off in a pre-rendered fashion. To go a little bit further, more on the character leveling side of things, I have noticed that it does take quite a bit of investment to get to the point where you're earning a lot more things to max out your characters a lot more quickly, which for Genshin, like as a direct comparison, I apologize for kind of always going back to the game, but I think it is the closest comparison that you can make, especially if you're familiar with both. I feel like Genshin, it is a little bit easier once you get to World Level 8, and once you get to the Internet level cap for this game, you know, it does still feel like it takes a little bit to kind of get through to the final level cap, which isn't a bad thing. You know, I think because the leveling journey overall is a little bit shorter, it's only to level 60 to max out a character, it does kind of require the fact that you need to get a few more materials to reach some of those caps. Numerically, I'm not sure how much of a big jump is made between like every 10-ish levels that a character levels up, but you know, it's just a way that the game kind of handles its own progression, and I am not like against it at all. Like I said, I just really enjoy it. It's doing its own thing, and that's all I could really be happy with, because Zenless Zone Zero is great at doing what it does best. I absolutely love it. Speaking of the character leveling and what I mentioned earlier about team strategies, this game definitely centers around the fact that you not necessarily need to, but are highly encouraged to get characters that synergize very well together, either because they have the same type of attributes or elements associated with them, or because they come from the same faction. When you're looking at the characters on your character select screen, you'll notice that a lot of them have a faction emblem that shows what clan, quote-unquote, they're kind of dedicated to. For example, you have Anby and Nicole as part of the Cunning Hares, or Ellen and Corrin that are a part of Victoria's housekeeping. And the newest addition to the game, which I have just kind of fallen in love with, absolutely, is the Sons of Caledon, which is mostly made up of women, but goddamn, they are so freaking cool. I love Caesar, I love Bernice. I've come to love Lucy and Piper as well, now that they've kind of had their character introductions as a result of the story now. And as of right now, I would say the Sons of Caledon is probably my favorite faction in the game at the moment, disregarding the gameplay, because holy moly, guys, I have a story about, like, my entire journey with trying to get Bernice, but, you know, I could save that for another separate video in the future if I'd like to. When it comes to all of the characters in the game, I do have experience with most of them. Obviously, the ones that I don't have, I've only managed to play in the trial runs, but I have been pretty lucky in terms of getting everybody else, as far as, like, the standard banners, as well as also getting, I think, the 3 debuted characters in a row when the game first launched. So I think it was Ellen, Juyuan, Qingyi, and then it was Jane Doe right after, followed by Caesar. And then I came in and got Bernice right after. So with myself trying to keep myself free to play on Zenless, it has been pretty tough lately, especially with the whole Bernice story. But I think as of right now, I'm kind of mellowing out on the entire fear of missing out when it comes to new characters. So I think I'm finally settling in on trying to, you know, as far as the foreseeable future anyway, the next character that I would like to get is Caesar personally. But anyway, when it comes to a lot of the team compositions, it really doesn't matter too much who is on your team, as long as you know that they do work well together and can get the job done. You know, the team that I was running for the longest time after I got Juyuan, because I think Juyuan is much more of a harder hitting DPS than Ellen, but I would always end up using Nicole, Anby, and Juyuan. Anby can drive some of that stagger meter, Nicole can drive some defense shred, and of course Juyuan herself is just meant for the raw damage, which, speaking of some of those fighting mechanics, because I have neglected to mention those up until now, let's actually talk about the combat itself and how it actually works, because it looks a little bit chaotic, especially with the number of numbers that are appearing on the screen, especially compared to Genshin, but it's actually pretty simple once you kind of get the handle of it. And I think the best way that I could describe it is, if you're familiar with Stagger type systems, or I guess just a more specific example is like the Final Fantasy Remake trilogy, you know, you're kind of focused on, I would assume, like some of the smaller enemies building up their stagger meter, which is the yellow bar under their HP. And when it maxes out, they are staggered, they cannot move, and you get a damage bonus dealing to them as that meter starts to drain back to 0. And once it drains to 0, they will stand back up, and they will have their defenses obviously raised once more. And as you're kind of fighting, you get multiple chances to either dodge or counter depending on the flashes that the enemy emits as they're fighting. And as you're kind of going through the whole gameplay loop of normal attacks, special attacks, countering, dodging, and what have you, you'll slowly build up a bunch of decibel points, which once they max out at 3k, you get one ultimate attack from one character on the team that you can utilize. And this is actually where sort of the knowledge of your team and the overall synergy that they have with each other can really be put on full display, because since that ultimate attack is a one-time use for one character and not everybody has their own separate pool, you need to basically pick out the ultimate that will most help you in the exact moment, or risk wasting some of those points that you could be earning and save it for a more opportune moment. Typically, you know, depending on the roles of certain characters, you will want, say, for my personal example, Nicole can use her ultimate to further crowd control and defense shred. Anby can just further drive up that stagger meter because she's a stun type character. Or if you just want massive nuke damage from GUN as an example, you can use her burst to just drive that if they're already staggered. A lot of these different things and how characters work with each other are things that you just have to kind of learn as you play throughout the game, as well as experimenting with a bunch of new teams, which is something that I'm guilty of not doing. But you are rewarded for getting to know all of the characters that you have access to and building out the teams accordingly, depending on the types of battles you'll face. Because sometimes when you run into bosses, they're a lot more resistant to getting their stagger meter raised, so it probably won't be as beneficial for you to invest in a stun character like Anby. Or perhaps you'll just have a bunch of smaller enemies to where crowd control is going to be a huge thing. Or if you're crazy enough, you could just kind of go full DPS with 3 characters that can just absolutely nuke everything. But obviously that comes with the trade-off cost of not having any other support types. Which, speaking of, there is no healing in this game. I'm not sure if that could be like a deal breaker for some people. It was kind of weird to get used to at first, because especially playing Genshin, but most other games like this in general, you're kind of always expecting to at least have some sort of defensive support on your team, either a shielder or a healer. And shields are a thing in this game, but healers are not. And the shielders provide a more permanent shield to your HP bar, which effectively just acts as extra HP, even though it's called a shield. But as far as actual healing, the only healing that you're going to get is either in the TV modes, which is like an external way to traverse the levels so that there aren't as many level geometries that have to go into the game, or when you find HP, I guess, kind of gas canisters. I'm not sure. There's these canisters out in the world once you're actually playing within the level spaces that can heal you for a little bit. They're not the strongest things in the world, but they can really help. There's so much to really talk about when it comes to the combat in ZZZ. It's a lot more in depth than what I'm like trying to just kind of comb over here. But I just absolutely love everything that kind of goes into it. And it's really, really cool once you get into that flow state. And once you start like being able to read enemy patterns, you know when and how they attack, and you're able to manipulate your way around the enemies, because you can utilize the counters, you can utilize dodge, and the chain attack assists. Oh my gosh, when those activate as you stagger somebody, those are some of the coolest things in the world, because your entire team just starts to pop off, and I absolutely love it. Zenless knows how to just go crazy with character flair, and it's super duper cool. I absolutely love it. This is the type of thing that you would not expect when kind of hearing about the game for the first time, or when you're looking at kind of the marketing, because when I first started seeing Zenless marketing, literally just before it was coming out, I was skeptical. I wasn't really the biggest fan of it in the world, just because it was another Hoyoverse game. But you know, this has happened to me multiple times where I look at a game, I'm like, maybe it won't be that cool. But then if I'm given the opportunity, like if the game is free, I play it and I ultimately like it. And Zenless is just one of those games that I think is super duper special. So there's a lot that kind of goes into it, but to refrain from speaking a little bit too long on the matter, I'll go ahead and stop it there. Not in terms of talking about Zenless as a whole, but as far as like just the combat mechanics, because I mean, there's just so much to talk about with this game, and even I feel like I'm kind of falling behind because it's not a game that I'm primarily focused on myself. You know, I focus on Genshin and Call of Duty as far as like my own personal likes when it comes to video games, and ZZZ is just kind of in the background. But dude, I really love this game. It's super duper fun, and the highs and lows that you experience with not only the gacha but also the combat, and again, just the way that the characters interact within the story and the cutscene animations as well to help really sell all of those things. Super duper cool. I love this game. It's really, really fun. As far as like how the future of the game will go, I'm curious to see how the future banners end up going, because I think we're going to start coming up to the point where they're going to want to start rerunning Ellen and Juyuan. I'm not sure when that'll be, because I'm pretty sure the next patch is going to be more S-rank characters to show up that are brand new, no more reruns yet. But when that does end up happening, that'll at least be a sign for me to genuinely start getting ready for the Caesar rerun, because like I said, I really want her. She's a character that really focuses more on parrying and utilizing defense to create an opportunity for offensive attacks. And while that was super awesome and I really liked it when I gave her trial a shot, I had my heart set on Bernice when she was first drip marketed, so I kind of just had to take the bullet there and just go for Bernice and start waiting for Caesar's rerun. There's a lot kind of going on there, but like I said, I'll save the whole Bernice story for another separate video. As of right now, I think I did mention it earlier, but as of right now, I'm not too interested in the story overall. But I would totally be down for that to change in the future once things kind of get up and going, because as of right now, Genshin's story on Teyvat is ramping up big time. And as far as like my story brain goes, that is where I'm going to be having my focus set to a lot, especially with Act 5 of Natlan coming out next patch presumably, or maybe it'll be the patch after. And as far as ZZZ goes right now, you know, it's getting up to speed, it's trying to introduce the world, brand new characters, brand new rules and everything, so it'll probably take some time for me to get interested in everything that the game has to offer. And you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I can always just catch up on things that I'm kind of glazing over at the moment, which is pretty much exactly what I did with Genshin. When I first started with that game, I really just ended up skipping out completely on the Mondstadt and Liyue arcs, and then I went back later to kind of learn exactly what was going on, but that's neither here or there. Ultimately, I would just say that Zenless is just a really cool and honestly, just more importantly, a very kind of casual combat game that you can play, especially if you're someone who hasn't tried a Hoyoverse game before. It's free to play, obviously, and I think just the game is just super special. It's super fun, super responsive, super stylish, and it's just a game that I genuinely respect and like, and I hope that it continues to thrive in the future. I know that the team, especially after the 1.1 live stream, they have made it clear that they are making efforts to make the game even better with a lot of quality of life adjustments, new features, which, speaking of new features, before it was only your chosen proxy that could walk around in the world, but I think starting in 1.2 you'll be able to choose anyone, and we got a bit of an early peek at that with being able to use either Caesar or Bernice in the open world at the moment, which so cool. Just little things like that that make the game all the more special. Super nice. But yeah, as it stands right now, I'm gonna go ahead and cut off the rambling before I talk for an entire hour, because like I said, there's so much that I have to talk about with this game. I haven't had really any good opportunities to do so yet, but genuinely good game. I really like it, and it really surprised me with how fun and charming it actually is. So with that all being said, I would like to thank y'all so very much for watching. Once again, if you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like and let me know your thoughts about the game as well, if you tried it or if you're going to try it after seeing a video like mine, which I appreciate you for doing that. So I hope that y'all have a good day, and I will see you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.